Okay, we are recording. Okay, I just want to sort of comment. It's really nice to get together, and I look at the screen and I see all these remarkable, intelligent people, and I say it's a culmination of yet another level of a project and good work that is happening, and people can come together and share and rejoice in that process, and it's a good thing. So just it in Coda has presented me tobacco and asked me to open up in a good way. So I just like to call on Creator to come be here with us today to connect us with our relatives, which is the water, the land, the trees, the animals. There are our older brothers and our older sisters, and also the sky above us and the ground below us. Connect us to those because it is through them that we find our balance. Creator, watch over those and continue to help us build our relationship with them. Creator, we ask that you watch over those in our communities that are struggling today with various things bothering them, affecting them. Might be some form of mental uh, issue or a disability or just a personal struggle. Watch over them and guide them and help them and support them. Creator, ask you to watch over our families and our children and keep those home fires burning brightly and keep them safe, that we can return to them later today. Creator, for those that are traveling today, many of the folks in this screen will be traveling today, and take them home safely to their home fires at the end of the day. And Creator, we ask in conclusion to give us a good meeting, a good opportunity to share and enjoy the fellowship and the friendship that we have evolved over the years with each other, and continue to build on that to take us safely to our home fires at the end of the day and give us a good rest of the day. Marcy.
Thank you so much, Calvin. I'll just invite Alexandra to come and welcome folks.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, what did you want, Carrielynn?
If you just want to welcome people to this
Oh, well,
exciting
welcome.
lunch.
This is an exciting day, an exciting project, and represents the work of an awful lot of people. So I just want to hold up my hands in gratitude to them. I'd like to thank Calvin for his wonderful opening. And I guess if you're ready, Carrielynn, we can get started.
I am. So I'm just going to share the screen and just believe everything will work. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So again, Carrielynn and I are presenting this, but I really want to make mention of a number of people who were involved in its preparation, in particular Sadie Harleton, but there's also TB Consulting, and I see Em is on the screen with us. And there were many other people who were involved with this. So again, just want to thank everybody, and Carrielynn and I have the pleasure of just being the ones to present today. So thank you.
And to our lovely communication team, Nydia and Jen, thanks so much. All right, so
we're doing a land acknowledgement, and it for us is really important to be doing this in a meaningful way, and not just something performative, but rather that really reflects our relationship with Indigenous people and with the lands and waters on which we get to live and work. And so again, I just encourage everybody to really be thinking about what they could be saying as part of a land acknowledgement that really tries to reflect their relationship. Carrielynn? Okay, I think we were trying to decide over which one of us would speak, so I guess I can start. So, by way of a brief introduction, my name is Alexandra King. I am a member of Nipissing First Nation, which is located in what's become known as Ontario. I hold the position of a Chemical Chair in Indigenous Health and Wellness at the University of Saskatchewan, and that's located on Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis. And really thrilled to be part of this project and working with Carrielynn Lund.
My name's Carrielynn Lund. I'm with my Pamaskasquan team with Alexandra and the rest of our lovely team. I am leading a research project and engaged in many things. I have been with Alexandra on the CanHepC journey for some time now, and really excited. I am Métis from Lake Métis settlement in Northern Alberta, and excited to share our journey with you today.
So WINISCA is a CIHR-funded HIV, hepatitis C, and STBBI center that really is focused on the Prairie region. It is Indigenous-led, and the fact that when one looks at the numbers of HIV, hepatitis C, and other STBBI in the prairies, the need for Indigenous leadership is even stronger now than ever before. I also want to mention that we are indicating WINISCA as the lead organization, but in fact, CanHepC is sort of the mother organization, if you will, and the Prairie Roadmap represents one piece of a larger puzzle. That puzzle really started way back in, I think it was 2018 or 19, where as part of CanHepC, we produced a blueprint for Hep C elimination. And then subsequently, the country has been divided up into different regions, and each region is in the process of preparing its roadmap, which will also be implemented. So I guess it's me again. Carrielynn will be speaking soon, but we just wanted to take and talk a little bit about the development of this roadmap, and it really was quite the journey. It started with engaging first with people with lived and living experience, and we really wanted that to ground the roadmap. We used an iterative process with lots of consultation and validation. This just represents a high-level overview, and I would really encourage you to read the roadmap so that you can see all the work that was involved. But one of the things that we heard when we were doing validation is that people that we connected with said that they felt really heard. They felt that they were represented in the roadmap and that this was something that they could be using. We have launched it in Alberta and then Saskatchewan, and now we're doing a virtual launch. We've actually already even been back to Alberta for another presentation with the hepatology nurses at their conference in November, and they were part of the groups that we had consulted with, and we'll be launching the roadmap in Manitoba in February 2025 at the Manitoba Harm Reduction Conference. Thanks.
Oops.
So again, there were many people who were involved in this roadmap, in the consultations, in advisory groups, and reviewing, and we're just incredibly grateful to all of those who were part of this roadmap. And one of the things that Sadie, Carrielynn, there were others, Taylor worked really hard on was starting by creating good engagement and ethical space.
Just sharing the circles and workshops and interviews, sharing circles. I actually led the sharing circle in Edmonton. We partnered with HIV Edmonton, who have been very supportive and do some incredible work for people seeking services. And we asked them, we hosted it there. I had an amazing elder Russell that works with the clients from HIV Edmonton and the community. And in our recruiting, I did a lot personally, just going down and visiting with them and asking them if they would like to participate. But the commitment that I made was, and the invitation was, here's an opportunity for you as a person with lived experience to actually influence the people that make decisions when it comes to programming, when it comes to government. And so that has been the real, I would say that's been the focus of honoring that commitment, that we would have people with lived experience personally involved and engaged in a meaningful way. So they were part of this all the way through, not just in the sharing circles, but they were the bunch that was brought together to do the validation. We went back and reported to them personally, and they were so excited to see that their quotes, that their words were honored and put into the document. And so this has been an incredible journey with the workshops and the sharing circles and the individual interviews and the generosity of people with lived experience of service providers, of the health professionals, and the government representatives has been incredible and supportive, and we appreciate all of that.
So on this slide is a really beautiful quote, but rather than me reading it and having someone else's words come from my lips, I think it would be better that each of us just read this and reflect on it. So as Carrielynn mentioned, people with lived and living experience have been part of this process throughout. And one of the things that we did was create an advisory group of people with lived and living experience. And they were the ones who reviewed the wisdom from the sharing circles and helped theme these things out. Those themes were then shared with a graphical recorder who came up with these beautiful diagrams. And then these diagrams were brought back to the advisory group for validation to ensure that he had captured the spirit of what they had wanted. And so again, there's this iterative process that was used, and always starting with and coming back to the wisdom from lived and living experience. Okay, so what follows, and this is also in the roadmap, are a series of provincial summaries for Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. This is just a brief snippet from each of these summaries, and I would strongly encourage you all to read whichever ones might be relevant to you. This is especially the case in light of the race into HIV data, which is right now our best surrogate for hepatitis C. So we know there was a 35% jump in HIV diagnoses in 2022, and how it impacts each of the provinces is somewhat differently. So as an example, in Alberta, HIV rates have been increasing, with 2023 seeing a 73% increase over 2022. New diagnoses rates were highest in Saskatchewan at 19 per 100,000, followed by Manitoba at 13.9 per 100,000 in 2022. So Carrielynn, if you want to maybe go through the different summaries. One thing that is in these summaries is the opportunity for change. And again, I would strongly encourage people to be reading that and reflecting on how they might be able to participate in this, galvanize it, and move things forward.
These summaries actually came at the request of one of the members of the CGC, who said, I need something that when I go and talk and advocate to government, that I can just pull out and put it on their desk and we can discuss what's on that, instead of saying, here's a report, read it. They wanted something that was actually very succinct and helpful in discussions with funders and government. There's also a French version available. And so you can go online. If you see that winiskacenter.ca, you can get the English and the French version to download. So the emerging themes that came from the analysis were strong messages that came from everyone we had consulted, and I'm not going to read them off, but I think in the ones that really were echoed throughout the provinces was that it really needed to move Hep C from from using a disease lens to a holistic or whole person wellness lens, that they just getting treatment for Hep C wasn't enough. You needed to look at the person as a whole, prevention and education, and just really focusing in on the person as a person, not as someone with a disease and then, release them, treat them and release, but to really come alongside and in a relational situation where there's support that's wraparound. Stigma is huge. It still is. There's assumptions that are made. There's institutional stigma, individual stigma, the individuals themselves with stigma because how STBBIs have been responded to, and the incorrect assumptions that people make. And so there's a real need to address that in a tangible way, understanding and recognizing intersectionality, and the advocacy and resources are needed to increase community. One thing I heard in our circle in Edmonton is that COVID was devastating. It took out some of the most important services that they had, and those weren't replaced. And we heard this echoed in other places where access to services was really difficult. That was people who lived in the urban area. It was devastating to those who lived outside of the urban centers. And so just advocating for services for remote and rural as well. And just prioritizing Hep C resources to support the development of provincial strategies, and to empower and have the communities and the service providers who are working with the people seeking services, who know what is needed, adequately resourcing them to be able to do the work that needs to be done. Alexandra.
So within opportunities for change, there was a focus on different sectors, if you will. So in terms of the government sector and systems, they have an incredibly important role in strengthening provincial strategies for enhanced public awareness, for education, for harm reduction, and to really be supporting community-led approaches, including those developed by and with Indigenous communities. Data becomes a big consideration, because if we don't know the numbers, then we don't know where there are problems. And this includes Indigenous identification in the data so that we aren't invisibilized. And so it would mean then working with Indigenous people within each of the provinces to ensure that this is being done appropriately in a good way, and that when we are collecting data, we're doing it across the board for all people. What we heard again and again was that so often it seems like there's a disease or pathology-based approach, and it can be quite siloed. And people felt that taking a wellness approach that really was quite holistic would be much more successful and help to unite the care system towards accountability and with shared goals. And then another call that we heard from many people was the need for sustainable, non-competitive funding frameworks that then provide ongoing support so that community organizations are not having to be in sort of hamster wheels, always responding to funding cycles, but instead able to really focus on doing the good work that they're able to do. In terms of things also, we need policy changes so that we can ensure rapid access to testing and treatment, also rapid and widespread access to harm reduction. We need to be implementing Hep C policies that facilitate access to treatment and support for people while entering into incarceration and remand facilities. There's also a need to increase access to prevention resources that will allow us to meet the WHO targets in this area, and will also then help us to achieve the WHO targets in hepatitis C elimination. And, again, the calling for us to stop working in silos, but instead to unite approaches and policies across all sectors, and really by establishing interministerial, intersectoral committees and engaging with senior bureaucrats to better able support grassroots efforts. Sorry.
So when it comes to service providers and communities and community agencies, we heard from them that there needed to be implemented mandatory education requirements for all providers in strength-based and trauma-informed care to enable inclusive, person-centered care. Implement protocols for Hep C treatment and options, incorporating Hep C wellness as part of a regular patient health checks, and integrating dry blood spot and other point of care RNA testing more broadly to enhance accessibility, particularly in remote and underserved areas, and removing the barriers to doing that by requiring nurse practitioners and RNs to do it. That dry blood spot testing has been tried. It has been piloted in Alberta. That it was piloted in Red Deer with the Métis, and agency people were trained to collect the dry blood spot testing. And it's something that can be done, but putting that barrier of requiring an RN with the shortage of health professionals is making it so that it can't be accessed. Also ensuring accessibility and inclusive language options for Hep C information and care, getting away from the clinical biomedical type of terminology and really making it easy for community and everyone to understand, particularly when we're looking at people like the immigrant population and Indigenous and others where English is a second language or a third language or fourth language. Making it as simple and clear as possible. Also strengthening approaches with Indigenous communities to increase awareness. Now, when we say strengthening approaches, I really have to say that in my interpretation of that, it's improving the way we engage with Indigenous communities and recognizing that they have the answers that are needed. They need the support to be able to go and to do things in a culturally based, culturally grounded way. And that's a relationship that needs to happen. An advocate for and participate in peer-based program models for prevention, testing, care linkage, and treatment. And what's also needed is that in that whole peer-based program, there needs to be supports for the peer mentors themselves, who are often burnt out because of the heavy caseloads and not being able to lay down some of the things that they carry for the people that they work with. And so just making sure that we're caring for our peer mentors as well. And calling on governments and researchers, providers, and communities to ensure the voices of living experiences are included to provide leadership and policy changes. So again, that means not having them just attend a meeting or fill out a survey or be part of maybe doing informed consent in proposals for researchers, but having them involved from the beginning to the end to ensure that things are done in a way that can be the most effective.
So we really have quite the opportunity to do things differently. And we're hoping that the roadmap might provide a bit of a guideline or guidepost, if you will, for us to be moving forward in a good way. We really need government sectors and systems to be making appropriate investments. And what you can see here is a small plant. But importantly, money is actually part of the seed. And we think that there needs to be sufficient resources for this important work to be properly funded and be able to be done. Providers, communities, community agencies, they are really those that are working with people on the ground in the trenches, and they know what needs to be done. And we need to strengthen our support of them so that they're able to strengthen the work that they're doing and serve community better. And again, some of this goes back to the investing in strategies and interconnecting between government and communities, providers and agencies. And then finally, and this is something that each of us needs to be considering, is that ultimately we all have a role to play, and really self-reflecting on what that could be and how we could be doing more and better to service the community. Hep C can be eliminated, and it can be certainly eliminated here in the prairies.
Okay. So there's a contact. If you have any questions, certainly reach out to them, ask us one at usas.ca. And now you can, we'd invite you to put questions in the chat box or to just let us know, and we can answer any questions that you might have at this time.
And sorry, while we're waiting for any questions, I just want to point out this beautiful shadow box that has been prepared with some of the rocks that were painted. And the artwork is quite incredible. The messaging is stunning, and strongly encourage people to have a look at the rocks, either as captured in the roadmap or here. And I think there's pictures also on the website. Thank you.
These were done by participants that in the circles and the consultations. So. So I might pose a question to get things going. Um, what jumped out for you that may be a surprise, or that something that just really stood out for you as being very important and something that would be useful for you? We'd love to hear some of that.
We do have one question, Carrielynn and Alexandra.
Okay.
Mute your computer.
Jen, you go ahead.
What do you envision the next 5 years of Hep C work would look like because of this document? What are the next steps with this work?
Alexandra, go ahead with that and I'll pitch in if.
Well, at this point, I think one of the things that we are having discussions about is how to implement the roadmap and how to evaluate it. And I think that really will help us understand the next 5 years. As people are working with the roadmap, hopefully finding it useful in applying for funding or in connecting with other groups, then we'll also hope to learn from that and how we could be making whatever comes next better. I think it's really important that we're meeting with government, and that is one of the things that we're in the process of doing now and sort of in the next 5-6 months, and trying to advocate very strongly for the importance of strategies, for the importance of sustained funding now more than ever, and really looking at innovative approaches that meet people where they're at, regardless of where that might be in any of these 3 provinces. Carrielynn?
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that was you could use the tool as well as something to really reflect on what it is that you're doing, whatever strategy you have, whatever program that you have, and see if there's something in the recommendations that maybe you can act on. And so we're hoping that that's the kind of thing that this tool will do as well, is to inspire people to just do a check-in on how you're doing it. And with this opportunity of hearing from people with lived experience and the health professionals and other service providers, that you just might be able to make these changes in what you're doing to better reflect what's needed.
I think also, and I mentioned this a few times throughout the presentation, it really was quite an iterative process in developing the roadmap, and we don't see it as sort of being a final document, but rather something more living. And so we're really interested in feedback and suggestions as to what else we could or should be doing with the roadmap, how we might be further developing it. So we've launched it, but we really do see this as a work in progress, if you will.
May you read the next question, or do you want?
Thank you, Alexandra and Carrielynn, for answering that. We have another question from Jordan Dougson here. He asks us, have you done anything related to co-infection? How does this data relate to the plans in the document and the implementation?
Go ahead, Alex. You can.
So when we're talking about co-infection, a lot of times we're thinking about HIV and hepatitis C, but the reality is that co-infection means that there's 2 infections happening. And what we do see is possibly syphilis with HIV or syphilis with hepatitis C. And therefore, it's a question of when you are working, I think, with somebody, really taking a syndemics approach to this. So, we may be starting by talking about one particular sexually transmitted or bloodborne infection. And that could be HIV, it could be hepatitis C, it could be syphilis. But then really extending that conversation and talking about what other things the person might be at risk for, and appropriate testing and education, harm reduction for each of these. And so in my mind, when we're talking about co-infection, I think we're really looking at how can we support people to safely engage in various activities and know that they're going to be protecting themselves and those that they're with. Carrielynn?
Yeah, and I think I would just add to that in getting tested, whether or not you're positive or negative, is an opportunity to talk about reducing the risk with harm reduction information. So just not testing and going, oh well, you're good. It's negative, but making sure that that opportunity is really used to have discussions about how can you protect yourself, and just having that as an annual checkup for people is, where some are going. I do know that in my circle in Edmonton, there were a couple of people that had HIV and hepatitis C. And actually, they were tested for HIV, ended up finding out that they had hepatitis C. And so they were actually really grateful that they learned that they had hepatitis C, that there is a cure. And they're very excited about their wellness journey because they're now paying attention, taking care of themselves, trying to eat more healthy. And it's become a very positive thing, which in fact is really an Indigenous perspective to, and my teachings, is that the Creator gifts us with things. And HIV has been a lifesaver through the testimony of many Indigenous people that have said that's when their life turned around and they started looking after themselves. And so we don't want, that's where they were saying, please don't frame it in a negative thing. You're not trying to kill the virus. We need to be open to understanding more about the Indigenous perspectives when we're working with people, and just supporting them where they're at and where they want to go on their journey. But at least testing and treating and then continuing to support.
Thanks, Carrielynn and Alexandra again. We have another interesting question here in our chat box from Rachel. It goes as, could either of you speak to the intersectionality component of the work further? What is this project's understanding of intersectionality beyond gathering a range of diverse voices, which of course is crucial? And it is referred to resource development, knowledge mobilization, etc.
Carrielynn, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Why don't you start and I'll follow?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's lots of ways of looking at intersectionality, and it's just where things are crossing and it's related to each other. From an individual with lived and living experience, that intersectionality is something that is interpreted in the holistic response to services, and realizing that the person is complex and has complex needs and has perhaps a need for complex support. And then there's the clinical side of that and the program side, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Carrielynn. I was going to say, I think a lot of times when I think of intersectionality, I find that many people seem to talk about it as additive. So, let's say you're somebody who is living with hepatitis C and somebody who uses drugs. And so therefore it is 1 + 1 = 2 or some whatever the addition might be. But in fact, when I'm talking with people, it seems that it's more multiplicative. So these things interact with each other, and one accents the other, both in positive ways and also in negative ways. And so, as Carrielynn says, people are complex. There's many different aspects to them. I received a teaching from one person who talks about the manyness in all of us. And one of the reasons why I like that, as opposed to intersectionality, is that I think that it recognizes the strengths in these things. So it's not always perceived from a deficit perspective. And so, somebody who is Indigenous, that is an incredible strength for the person to have their culture, their ways, their teachings, and other things. And then how it interacts with perhaps, hepatitis C, as Carrielynn says, if one looks at these things as gifts, then one has to consider sort of what that means and how one would approach it. So I think that intersectionality or manyness or whatever, however you want to be approaching this, occurs in each of us and on multiple levels. And sometimes it might be one particular aspect that becomes really relevant for you. And other times it might be multiple of them. And so I think that, again, we really need to be focused on the person, on their self-determination, on their wellness, and then working from that outward, if you will. I see Leona has a question. Hi, Leona.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to know, seeing that we have all of the new tests that we have, the point of care testing that comes with hepatitis C, syphilis, HIV, have you seen an increase or any type of effects that the syphilis and hepatitis C have had? I'm really interested in it because our numbers are so high with syphilis and just continuing to grow.
So Leona, what do you mean by effects? Just that I'm clear.
Like, you know how when you have an STI, or like, for instance, when you have HIV and you have hepatitis C, one will accelerate the other, or the disease in the body will almost make the other one go faster. So, have you seen anything like that with syphilis and hepatitis C? Like, and I don't know how the treatments interact either.
Well, fortunately, both syphilis and hepatitis C are curable, right?
Mhm,
And
yeah.
so this is something then that you're looking at a limited duration that somebody would be exposed to the treatments, as opposed to HIV. We've got fabulous treatments, but they're not cures. And so I know that with any of these infections, they're compromising the immune system. The immune system is having to rise up and fight. And so if you have more than one thing going on, then your immune system is going to be working harder.
Mhm.
And you may see that, in fact, it isn't able to handle one as well as if there was only one infection, right? So, and I think the data is pointing in that direction. I'd have to look specifically at syphilis and hepatitis C to be able to answer that question, but it's a reasonable question, and I think that when you sort of step back and just think about the impact on somebody and how the immune system is fighting these different infections and can only fight so much. So, I think that with all of the different testing that we have, it really represents an incredible opportunity, right? That we could be moving not only into testing as diagnosis, but testing as prevention. And so people are able to include testing as part of their life, and therefore are much more aware of their status, and hopefully then also interested in making sure that they keep themselves safe, right? And so the two things that you mentioned, syphilis and hepatitis C, are both curable.
Yeah.
And so if one tests positive, then one can be seeking treatment, and then hopefully doing their best to remain negative going forward. But we know that in terms of the medicine itself, they can be used again and again, right? So.
with both the hepatitis C cure and the syphilis treatment that they have available today, we're still struggling in Regina with both. We still have people that are dying of hepatitis C or liver failure or liver cirrhosis. And the nurses are still searching for people to give them treatment for the syphilis, sorry, because the treatment is so invasive for syphilis, right? It's not an easy treatment to take. But I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and Leona, the other thing that comes up in discussions and part of the incentive to get tested is that, for instance, hepatitis C affects the liver, as we know, and it can be a long time before before you're symptomatic and you actually know that something's wrong. And with the disproportionate number of Indigenous people with diabetes per se, where there's already the potential for liver damage, and or you were drinking a lot and you've turned your life around, but you don't realize that your liver has been compromised through some of the lifestyle choices that you made, that you can already that makes it much more impactful when you do get hepatitis C. So the sooner you get tested, the sooner you get the treatment, the better it is. So if the and I'm thinking about Saskatchewan, and I'm not going to get political at all, but when the absolute need for ambitious harm reduction, to remove the barriers for testing, where more people can do the testing, especially with people who are uncomfortable going to a clinic because of perhaps the assumptions and racism that they experience. And to be able to get those micro elimination projects going, where a large amount of people can be tested in a shorter period of time. These are all things that need to be considered, and hopefully more people will get tested. And thank you for the work you do, Leon.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody else here that's in the work, thank you. So is there any last call for questions? Otherwise, you can email us. Okay. Well, it's been wonderful to share with you. Thank you so much. I know that Alexandra and I this has been an amazing journey, and will continue to be, I'm sure. I just encourage those of you who can use your influence to please download the full report, read it, look at it, and see how you can apply it to the work that you do, and let us know. Please let us know so that we can, maybe connect people together, and that we can learn. If you've got suggestions, recommendations, or whatever, please get a hold of us and let us know. This is a living document. This is a journey, and we haven't come to the end of it yet. So thank you for joining us on our journey today. And we wish you all the very best, and to your families as well for the holiday season.
Calvin, do we want to switch so you can
Okay.
close us in a good way? Okay, thank you.
All right, I just want to call Creator to say thank you for bringing us together in a very powerful way today, and tremendous amount of information was shared. You can feel the energy and the support that comes out of the conversations. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hard work gone into this, and there'll be lots of successes, and with hopefully very few setbacks on the journey. And we just ask Creator to guide us, look after us all in a good way, and to support us as individuals, and of course, look after our families and keep us safe and in a good way. And with that, I also wish you all a merry, very merry holiday season, and a good have a good rest. And I look forward to visiting with you again in the very near future. Merci.
Mhm. Mhm.